Exxon in the news where you had a hedge fund called Engine One. Was able to get 2 board members elected. I think they still have a chance to get 2 more. They're still counting. I don't know if it happened yet. Could go up to 4. But Engine One, this is a hedge fund that's all about climate change. It's going to result in Exxon, changing their entire business model, business strategy to be more climate friendly, which is kind of insane to me because you brought up some good points about how big Engine One is and how big their position is. But they had some very, very big, powerful investors vote these people in.
Yeah, and so this came out last week, and I think the CEO of EXxonMobil was pretty nervous, and he was on the phone trying to convince shareholders to vote for the kind of the same old song and dance. But BlackRock, who we've talked about a lot, the trillion, I don't know, what are they up to? How many trillions of dollars in assets under management? But we talked about this it's a few months ago. Is it Larry Fink? Why am I second guessing myself? Is it who runs BlackRock, right?
Yes.
Because he was on a CNBC interview. And he was explaining how they're not going to sit back and be idle anymore, and they're going to use their power and their influence to help be more ESG, okay, environmental social governance. So what you have here is BlackRock funds are the second largest owner of ExxonMobil. They're the ones that backed the Engine One board of directors appointees and who got them elected, basically. Engine One owns 0.02% of ExxonMobil.
Yeah, it's a $50 million.
They have about
position.
a $50 million position. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a ton of money, but it's nothing when you're playing around with the amount of money and the hedge funds that you're dealing with. So what happens is now, if you're a CEO, especially if you have a target on your back, if you're in oil and gas or natural resources of any kind other than clean energy, you have to pay attention to this, and you had better take the card out of the AMC CEO playbook and start really communicating with your shareholders, because you need those huge asset managers like BlackRock. It helps stabilize your price. How long do you think BlackRock's held shares of ExxonMobil? Several years.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they own every single stock.
Yeah,
in the world,
they own everything.
Right?
But now you're at a point where they can totally influence. I think it's 25% of the board now. And like you said, I think they're still tallying. They might get 3. I think 4 is a little bit of a stretch, but I think there's a toss-up for the third one, meaning Engine One already got 2 appointees. They might get a third one. But so now you're CEO of ExxonMobil, and you're going to have to discuss this. And yeah, maybe they do some good things. Maybe they help. It's not hard to believe that there can be improvement. You can always do better. But as an individual investor, this is going to tell you to brace for higher oil prices, because now you're going to have these guys go in there and say, hey, you need to get off this oil and gas. You need to cut production. That's going to give opportunity to other companies, and it's also going to cause higher prices in general, in my opinion. So that's a big political tailwind for higher oil prices, And Frank, we've been talking about this. We don't have any oil exposure in CRA, I don't think. I'm thinking off the top of my head. But we've been kind of BSing behind the scenes about this and just seeing oil rally like crazy. And I hope you guys have exposure to it. Devon Energy is a big fan of ours, an old CRA holding. But for the individual investor, expect higher oil prices, and there's no way. I think Goldman has an $80 price target for oil towards the end of the year. I don't know how it doesn't go at least to 100 over the next, a year from now. I hope it doesn't, because that's going to hurt all of us, but at least you can make money and help offset higher prices at the pump.
Yeah, and also you had, Shell, right? The Dutch court found that Shell's partially responsible for climate change, or the company to sharply reduce its carbon emissions. And then you have the Exxon news with the activist investors. To me, I think this is insane. I really do. I mean, if I was Exxon, if I was Royal Dutch, if I was Chevron, if I was Pioneer, I'd give these climate people exactly what they want and stop producing oil at the same exact time. That's what I would do. For 1 year. Just do it for 1 year, okay? Because you're going to have gasoline prices at $10. Oil's going to be $350. You could say, hey, we're green now. This is great. This is awesome. So, let's see if wind, solar, electric, whatever, if they could pick up the slack, which they haven't yet and they can't. They just don't, again, this isn't baseload power we're talking about here, wind, solar. But it's getting nuts. And it's getting nuts because when I look at the facts, it's okay to believe in climate change without going like stupid crazy over. You got to be careful with these people. Like the Al Gores, I get it. The whole thing was made up and it's all for money, right? I get it. The guy made a fortune, right? I said earlier, Daniel, the guy would have purchased like a $7-8 million house in California, which he predicted would be underwater in 2020, right? So it wouldn't exist. But you got to be careful of the extremists here because they're absolutely nuts. Because when you look at the facts here, 70% of U.S. energy consumption is oil and natural gas. 70%. Remember the days when natural gas, that used to be clean energy? Not sure when that changed, but it's kind of put in the same category as coal now. I don't know why. Coal is another 10%. Then you have nuclear around another 10%. So you're looking at 70, 80, 90% is oil, natural gas, coal, and nuclear. And then you have renewable energy. And I want to bring this up because I saw this chart here, which is really cool. And if you're on our Curzio Research YouTube page, you could see it. Let me see if I could find it here. Okay, there it is. And let me bring it up here. Okay, here it is. So it shows the U.S. primary energy consumption by energy source 2020. And you look, and these are the numbers I just said right here, right? 34, 35. I mean, it's really insane when you see some of these numbers. Look at renewable energy. Renewable energy is 12%. Inside renewable energy, inside that 12%, it's only 12%, 11 is solar, 22 is hydroelectric, 26 is wind, and then you have, the biomass that takes up a big part, which includes biofuels, wood, which is 18%. That surprised me, biomass. But you look at 12% renewable energy, which so I get it. We're doing a pretty good job here, and it's awesome, but we have to be very, very careful because if these guys just decide and say, hey, you know what? We're done with this. Let's stop producing oil for it, which they won't say, but if they did, what would happen? You're going to see oil prices explode. I don't think anyone out there realizes how much their bills, their personal wealth is going to decline the more we have clean energy in the system. If it's going to save the world and we have facts, it's different. Yes, we have to, put money into it, and I get it. But to the extremists where, hey, we total, zero carbon emissions by whatever, 2030, come on. I mean, you're out of your mind. And the fact that they're influencing these big companies and dictating what they should do is absolutely insane.
Yeah, because it's totally... You need to pay attention to this. However, it's all about the transition, in my opinion. Like you said, I mean, you can't stop producing oil right now because things would just get crazy. No doubt there's going to be a lot of transition, and how long that takes, who knows. But if you can get cleaner, more reliable energy than oil or natural gas, I'm all for it, depending on what's the cost to society and the economy. ExxonMobil, though, is knocking on the door of a 52-week high. So it's up 1% today. It's a little over $61. 52-week high is 63 and change. So the market is liking this. And this just goes to show you the momentum behind that whole ESG and green movement. So now you can gain exposure through that with ExxonMobil. So just something to pay attention to. And, if you're a believer that energy prices are going to continue to move higher like I am, then you ought to have exposure to both either oil or natural gas or clean energy, either way. The world's big enough for both. It just depends on how fast that transition and how hard they want to push for transitory.
Yeah, just the fact, because we're looking at, you mentioned BlackRock, right? So BlackRock, so you look at Engine One has a $50 million position, and obviously BlackRock has a bigger position than that, much bigger. BlackRock owns every single stock. Do you know how much their assets under management are right now?
No, trillions.
$8.6 trillion. So you have these guys.
10, so I've been over
8.6 trillion. I remember it was 5 trillion like a year and a half ago, but I guess all the gains and everything. So you're looking at all this money that these guys have, and they're backing this initiative. What that is going to change going forward is the way people have voting rights, because sometimes the voting rights are structured where for the insiders, where one vote counts as 10 or 20 or 30. But if you're going to have guys like BlackRock, because BlackRock now is a shareholder, and if you want to give me 1 second here, Daniel, because we bring up my Capital IQ system, because I am curious on this to see the percentage of Exxon they actually own.
BlackRock?
So, BlackRock, how much Exxon?
I think it's between 6 and 7%, but
is it 6 or 7%?
Double check it. I think it's 6 and change, but
yeah. So you're looking at a company that owns, 6% of this company, and again, I'll get that fact for you right now. But now you're looking at BlackRock. BlackRock's going to dictate. I mean, they have the power to dictate what every single company does because of the massive presence, right? Because they could vote for whoever they want to, and that's really, really scary. Yeah,
It just
that's
shows you
a
this
different. You know what I mean? That's something that's totally different.
Now, in their defense, they did vote for the current CEO and stuff, but don't think that they're knocking on the table or saying, "Hey, pay attention to us," because we're not going to be as idle as we have been in the past.
Yeah, so it is 6.6%, and then Vanguard is another one who's huge. So this is a 6.7% number. Vanguard owns 8%. State Street owns 5%. These are guys: State Street, BlackRock, Vanguard, Fidelity, all largest shareholders. They're the largest shareholders of every company, basically. So, but the fact that they have their power to vote and push some of this stuff in, and all of them are like really into, you have to kind of support that agenda. Now, you could bitch about it and complain and you don't believe in climate change, but like you said, this means oil is going to surge. It's going to go over 100, right? If they're pushing more into climate change, going to produce less drilling, and that's going to drive, less supply is going to drive up prices. It's going to result in a lot of companies seeing windfall profits. And that's how you really have to position yourself. I mean, this ESG thing, whatever you think of it's BS or not, and I think most of us do believe in some form of climate change, not to the point where, California was going to go underwater, and go crazy, and how the U.S. is going to ruin the world, even though I think it's 9 or 10% of the carbon emissions is from us. So even if we cut it completely, if every other country decides not to, it's not going to make a difference much. But you have to invest accordingly. I mean, these guys are changing the boards on the biggest oil company in the world, the biggest companies in the world. They're changing how they have their strategy and how they structure. And as an individual investor, pay attention. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It doesn't mean if you're Republican, you probably hate it. If you're Democrat, you're like, yes, more green, whatever. That's the initiatives. Forget about the initiatives, because the only thing you should care about is how do you make money? How do you become rich? How do you make your family better off, right? That's what your goal is, right? That's what you should be caring about. If you do, this is how you have to play it. And oil is going to go higher, and natural gas too. We have practically unlimited supply of natural gas, hundreds of years if we keep drilling deeper and deeper. But a lot of these prices are going to go higher as this green initiative gets pushed, and it's going to continue to get pushed through this administration. So you got like another 2 full years, I think, where you can make a lot of money on this trend and start buying these things as they pull back, because money is being forced to go into these industries. It's being forced. You know this as well as I do, because you look at a lot of quarterly reports. If you look at the transcripts, or if you look at the presentation on every website, they come out with their quarterly results every 3 months, and then they'll have you can listen to their quarterly conference call, and then they come out with a transcript, but they usually have a presentation there, PowerPoint, which shows slides. Every company in S&P 500 has dedicated at least 20% of those slides. So it's like 3, 4, 5 pages to ESG and what they're doing. Every single company right now. Every company. It was never in there before, Biden got elected. Now every single company is like, we have to put some with ESG. What are we doing to help the climate? That's what people care about. We need to do that. And again, they don't really care about the climate. They just care about the sentiment behind it. And they know they have to do it. If they don't, it's going to, they can get in trouble. But, you have to invest in quarterly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can make money off higher prices. So it's not time to panic. We're not saying that. It's just, that's a big change. And if you have these large holders start to throw their weight around, that's something that you have to take note of, because that's going to give individual investors a lot of opportunity.